and make sure that's available more widely afterwards. So back to you, Ross.
Great, thanks for that, John. That's really useful. One of the things which we mentioned on the last call, which we're going to be doing a bit more of, is kind of standalone webinars and Zoom calls with very specific groups in mind. So we've got one coming up, which I think Jen's going to put the link in to chat, which is going to be on the 17th of April, specifically for any services working in the violence against women and girls field. So if you work in that area of work, you can apply to take part in that. We're quite strict on that one, so you need to sign up with an organisational email address. So if you work for a rape crisis centre or a women's aid organisation or another organisation that's working in that field, we'll be checking that it's a correct staff organisational email address, kind of for obvious reasons. But that link will go in the chat and you can sign up via there. But we're going to be pulling together much more, I guess, specific Zoom calls that are going to address quite specific issues that sit around this kind of bigger community call that we're going to have on a weekly basis. So I'm not going to whittle on for much longer. So we're going to hear from Anne Callahan from Campaign End Loneliness. So we've got about 5 minutes for each speaker, and then we'll have a chance for Q&A after we've heard the full range of speakers today. So
sorry to cut in, Ross. Just as speakers come on, if you can just introduce yourself, your name and the organisation you work with, that's really helpful for the podcast so we can have that context on what you've been doing. Thanks.
Brilliant.
Shall I go?
Yeah, go for it, Anne. Thank you.
So my name's Anne Callahan. I'm campaign manager for the Campaign to End Loneliness. So hello, 121 people on this call that I can't quite see. So I work for the Campaign to End Loneliness. Our focus is on older people. We work in a research and sort of policy and influencing space. And again, our focus is on older people. I'm sure there's lots of people on this call who don't necessarily work with older people. And we also know that anyone can experience loneliness at any time. And perhaps some of us are getting a crash course in it at the moment. So I'm going to talk about some of the kind of generalities, and there will be other speakers who will speak more about the kind of transformation. But just to let you know that there are definitions around loneliness. Loneliness is a subjective feeling. It's the gap between the meaningful connections you've got and the ones that you want. And usually it's about face-to-face connection. Obviously, we're in a very kind of different space at the moment with social distancing. There's also different types of loneliness that people might experience, from emotional loneliness where there might be bereavement and someone's lost someone, to social loneliness where maybe you're kind of, you've lost friends and you don't have contact there. And then maybe we're all about to get a crash course in existential loneliness, that feeling of feeling very disconnected with what's going on. And sometimes that sort of results as from a situation of trauma or bereavement. But it's very true that people kind of move in and out of those different kind of states of loneliness. A few years ago, we did a piece of work called Promising Approaches to Reducing Loneliness in Later Life. And it set out that there's 3 main ways that one can actually help people find meaningful connection. One is a one-to-one sort of interaction. There are some people that going into a group space is kind of quite challenging. And then we've got group-based activities, and then we've got how you help someone change thinking in terms of how they look at themselves. Because one of the most insidious parts of loneliness is it drains away your sense of yourself and feeling that you're kind of interesting, or your social cues might not be sort of in line with kind of societal mores. But obviously, if we're all physically distancing, those social cues are going to become a little bit more challenging, and listening to people on the phone is going to be sort of ever more vital. So given that we're talking about digital connection, I'm going to go sideways for a moment, which is just to say, whilst you're going through that transformation, please don't forget the importance of phone and letters, and particularly for older people, there's a huge digital divide, as there is across Scotland, but particularly for kind of older people. So it's really important to use the channels that already exist sort of at the moment. And it's about helping people keep kind of mentally and physically sort of active and connected with the world sort of around them. Also to be aware that people's situations may be changing. We don't know how long we're going to be in this situation for, but for those who are shielding sort of officially or unofficially or socially isolating, we need to kind of start building in the ability to help people find a sense of connection through phone and through digital over time. So there's some really exciting things that SCVO and others are looking at, which might actually result in this huge, great leap forward. So that's going to be sort of really exciting. And I think there's a few people in this call who are involved in that. But some of the research that's kind of been done before talks about the importance that, particularly for older people, it's about providing people with support to get up to speed with technology. It can be quite daunting if you've never done that before, and particularly for those over 75, the majority of whom haven't been engaged on that side of things. And older people have said that ongoing support is absolutely vital, having someone that they can go to troubleshoot if there's a problem, because the other thing that impacts on loneliness is this principle of self-efficacy, the belief in that you're able to do things. And I don't know about you, but I often tend to lose the plot when I have to try and plug my new smart TV in, and that sort of defeats me. So imagine getting a crash course in technology that you haven't kind of, you know, had before. So ensure that there are support mechanisms sort of around there. In terms of loneliness, there are two big drivers in Scotland: poverty and people sort of experiencing sort of long-term conditions. And Scottish Household Survey had done a piece of work in September last year that actually did a breakdown right across Scotland, and this is pre-corona, about the areas that were particularly vulnerable to loneliness. So you saw Dundee scored quite highly, sort of West Lothian and sort of Falkirk were kind of three of the highest places where people were experiencing loneliness, and that was right across the sort of the age range. So how do you help people feel a sense of connection? Well, it's shared values, it's shared history, it's shared activities, and it's shared interests. If you look at how your service actually delivers at the moment, how are you helping people access some of that? What's also vital at the moment is distraction is really important to take people's mind off what's going on. The thing about loneliness is it can lead to an increase in kind of blood pressure and stress and anxiety. And this situation, I think, will probably sort of exacerbate that, obviously, kind of massively, because people's day-to-day sort of activities have undoubtedly been profoundly changed. Those who are housebound may find that there aren't the same people kind of coming in, so that the contact that they have has kind of gone, which is kind of extraordinary. So when you're thinking about distraction techniques, from an older person perspective, 500,000 older people in Scotland alone, according to Age Scotland, have TV as their main source of company. Think about how can you use TV as it exists at the moment as conversation starters, something that kind of brings people together to help them talk about it. I'm talking very fast because I'm trying to do what I'd normally take 45 minutes to do in 5 minutes. So sorry, I'm going so fast. So one of the other sort of ways to help people reduce the sense of loneliness is volunteering. Now, there's some people who are able to kind of go out and sort of be part of the different COVID mutual groups, but there'll be a lot of people who will be shielding. And there's a lot of older people who were the backbone of a lot of kind of volunteering sort of right across Scotland. Can you have a think about ways to involve people in volunteering activity that they can do by phone and sort of online? The other exciting thing is befriending networks have done a series of 6 videos to kind of basically get people up to speed who are looking to integrate befriending suddenly into their kind of service delivery. I'd encourage everyone to really have a look at those videos. They've done an extraordinary job in kind of pulling that together. So other things to kind of consider with kind of older people, like you guys are the experts in many cases probably on this call, but it's like one tech size doesn't fit all. It's about thinking about there are hearing issues, there are kind of visual sort of impairments, there are dexterity issues, and, you know, speaking this morning to Glasgow Disability Alliance, and they're kind of building all that kind of knowledge into kind of how they're going to be kind of rolling things out. So it's really thinking about how you use the phone, check in with your kind of beneficiaries, find out what they want, and then think about a triage kind of approach to this. Who are the people that you need to kind of target first? My suggestion, and it won't fit for everyone on this call, is from a loneliness perspective, if you're living alone, you are potentially at kind of higher risk of having kind of a more chronic experience of loneliness. So if you know that information already, think about kind of targeting those. Those who are shielding or are self-shielding, because again, as GDA pointed out, there's differences across the different devolved sort of nations in terms of who's advised to shield and who's not. older carers and those in receipt of caring, if you're kind of involved with that particular client group. One of the things, obviously, this is highlighting is that inequalities are being sort of reinforced. So thinking about, have you got provision for people from Black, Asian minority, ethnic kind of groups, and LGBTQ plus as well, if that's kind of integrated into your offer. And obviously the sort of the kind of the visual and the hearing issue is very important from a kind of an older person's perspective. I would sing the praises of SCVO as well. They've got these kind of 15-minute checks, and it's kind of important to get your staff upgraded in this. So think about, where have you got people who are already really a bit more tech savvy in terms of the use of Excel and different types of technology, and cascade that kind of across the piece. Are there tech savvy supporters or people on your board or people in your wider community who are involved with you that you could kind of get to come on board and kind of provide sort of additional sort of insight? And again, don't forget landline phones and print, and the use of kind of local newspapers and community radio to kind of actually let people know what's happening. So until we bridge this digital divide, we need to kind of still build the channels that exist already into the work that you do. And well done everyone for doing an amazing job in very challenging circumstances.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Anne. That's really useful. Some of the stuff that Anne's spoken about there, other people have kind of pulled in examples into the chat box, which you might have noticed. So there's some really interesting stuff like organisations like Playlist for Life, just kind of reinforcing some of the stuff that Anne's spoken about there. We've still got people coming into the call as well, so we're now at 126, which is exciting. We're going to hear from Adam Stachura from Age Scotland next. He's going to be talking about some of the work that they've been doing. They've done quite a lot of, quite impressive in terms of how rapid they've done some of this work, so it'll be really interesting to hear from him. I'll hand over to you just now, Adam.
Ross, I think you're muted.
Ironically, I'm the one on mute, not Adam. Adam, Adam, do you want to unmute yourself if you can? There we go.
There we go. How's that?
I'm telling you to unmute yourself while I'm muted. That's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? Right, I'm sorry.
I could read your lips.
That's good.
We're kind of there. Hello everyone. This is quite an unusual thing in such a big call, and it's certainly made me put a collar on today as opposed to the usual rugby training kit that might be wearing for different team calls or whatever. Really pleased to have a chat. I think I was quite interested in just giving you a brief overview of some of the challenges that we've faced and what we've been doing to try and fix them, but also look at what the need and demand is out there. And I think when you look at the number of people in this room and the organisations you represent, you're essentially the solution for older people. And one of the things at Age Scotland, so I'm the head of policy and communications for Age Scotland, and we're sort of one of a national-based charity for older people. Now, this will be something over the age of 50 for lots of reasons, just because age discrimination really does kick in, or older age discrimination in the workplace at 50, and that's a lot of the work that we'll do. But over the last few weeks, our work has entirely been focused around our helpline service, which is one of the core services that we offer, beyond lots of other things, and it really sits at the heart of how we would aid people to become more connected and less lonely and isolated. So in terms of what we've been doing recently, we have had to absolutely scale up our helpline service for older people. And on a normal basis, we would sort of handle about 20,000 calls a year, which on average is about 70 or so a day that we're operating from older people. Last week, the average number of calls coming in was about 750 a day. So we've had to scale up significantly from a handful of helpline advisors to almost reappropriating every single soul that works in the organisation to train them up to be able to deal with different types of calls coming in either a triage system or different things. And the offer here is sort of information, friendship and advice. And the friendship part, I think, is particularly pertinent to this call. And it's not in a way which some fantastic organisations that are on this call do in terms of brilliant befriending, but it's to have that opportunity for folks to have a check-in and friendly chat. But the range of things that people have been calling about have largely been driven by national news. or initiatives by the government or whoever, the NHS, and calling really to find out what does that mean for me. And one of the things that we found particularly interesting, and Anna's talked about the digital divide in older people, but if you consider this, that of those people who are over the age of 60 in Scotland, the population of Edinburgh, 500,000 people, don't use the internet. 70% of over 70s do not use the internet. So for them, the way that they're getting information, particularly as coronavirus has been something which is of critical importance to the health of older people, they are missing out on a lot of the information that exists. So what have we been trying to do? Number one is decipher all of the information that's coming out from the NHS and the Scottish Government. And often at the beginning, there's so much of it. And it's sometimes inconsistent. It's not meant as a criticism, but things move really quickly. And try to build a hub, an online hub on our website at age.scot/coronavirus. And it sort of developed from there, from what does coronavirus, what is it? What do you have to do? And as the guidance from the NHS and the Scottish Government has developed, it's to build that as well. And it wasn't to try and replicate it or to change the advice, it was just to decipher it for older people. And what does shielding mean? What does self-isolation mean? All of these things. But where can you go for help? So this really sits in terms of our digital offering alongside what we'll do in our phone call operation. So people can call us up and just find out, what does this mean? I've just had this letter from the Chief Medical Officer. It says I need to shield. What do I do? I've been at home for a week. I've got no food. My social care has been cut from 4 visits a day to 0. My family's been asked to come and take care of me, but they can't because they are shielding themselves or isolating. So the types of calls we're getting from people have been incredibly desperate. And at the first phase of this, it has very much been about managing their crisis. How do we signpost, refer? How do we give the right information, advice, and deciphering of information for them? But where I think this is going is as more solutions to their sort of crisis needs sort of develop, there'll be far more people who are going to be desperately lonely and isolated more. They are physically isolated, a lot of them, by virtue of having to self-isolate, by nature of name, shield themselves from others and having less contact. Couple that with not having the internet, not having digital devices to just go on and whether WhatsApp family members or whatever. So the phone is desperately important to them, as is the sort of consuming basic news through, say, the BBC or STV or whatever, or the radio. And as we go, we realise that the number of calls that we'll get will shift away from this balance of mostly crisis calls to a friendship call, a chat, a general check-in. And they'll just kind of call up, and whoever kind of answers will be in a position to have a good friendly chat with them. And trying to find some kind of common ground, work out what they've been doing, what they've been watching, what they like, and have some kind of like interesting conversation with them, and that they can call up anytime, any day, to have a chat with someone to make sure now they'll not just be a friendly chat, but they can also access all their information as we go. And this sort of really stems from some of the previous services we've had. We've just had to pause for just now. For instance, our community support, community development, which supports hundreds and hundreds of older people's groups across Scotland, but they've all kind of shut down. So all the staff that have been working there are now on the phone lines. Our community connecting service is there to kind of match and place people with groups and organisations and activities which they really love to do, but had no one to find out, didn't know how to find out where to get them. For instance, someone was placed fairly recently with an Elvis Presley Appreciation Society. Now, it can happen. People can have any kind of kind of likes, and we're able to hopefully refer them to groups and organisations, many of whom I know are on this call. But so we're trying to find a way that as time goes on, we can kind of resurrect this. But if the groups aren't operating, existing, just being the friendly ear and friendly voice is just so important. So this is where we've been. We've scaled up. We've been tasked by the Scottish Government to be in a position to handle 1,500 calls a day, which means that the whole focus of the organisation is on this helpline, nothing else. You might have expected to do other work. Well, it stopped. You're on this. You're going to get trained up. You have to do it. And it's not easy. It's really hard, particularly from day one, realising you're going from 70 calls to 600 calls. How do you do that? How do you give people the information that they need? And also dealing with this critical and desperate need from people. So the kind of real challenge here is this balance between what we have available online between us all, how we make sure people have access to the best information, advice and activities, and how do we look for solutions for those people who are not online yet, or who might never become digitally engaged by virtue of a lack of a will, or quite frankly a disability which has meant huge barriers in place for them. So there's a really big challenge there. I know a lot of our work is kind of the old-fashioned way of phone calls and talking to people, but making sure that we can back all that up, the digital offering, but ideally refer to all the great stuff that everyone on this call and beyond does. It's kind of really where we've been, I think.
Great, that's really useful, Adam. Thank you for that. I think it'd be interesting as well, the kind of questions that are coming in is when you're adding those in, is just giving some thought to how is your organisation allocating resources at the moment. And for some of you, I know for some charities, there's been a bit of a kind of almost a kind of freeze where they're like business as normal doesn't exist anymore, and trying to pivot really quickly just isn't in the way that they generally operate, and it's been really difficult for them. So it'd be interesting to hear some good examples, but also I guess for some of you, if you're in an organisation that feels that this has become really difficult, and maybe there's other people who can offer some advice in the call. That was really useful, Adam.
Thanks.
We're going to bring in Colin now from SPAEN, which is the Scottish Personal Assistant Employers Network, and he's going to talk a wee bit about what they've been doing. So Colin, do you want to jump in? You might be on mute, Colin. You are on mute. There we go. Do you want to unmute yourself? It's not me this time. That makes a change. It's the bottom left that looks like a little microphone. If you click it, you should be able to unmute yourself. Oh no, you can't get it to unmute. Have you tried clicking the little microphone?
There we go.
There we
go. There we go.
Go.
Talking about using digital, maybe I shouldn't be doing any talking on it. So yeah, my name's Colin Millar. I'm the Chief Executive at the Scottish Personal Assistant Employers Network, or SPAEN. We've been supporting people who use direct payments to employ their own social care support for 20 years now. And like everybody else, probably, we kind of thought we had most things covered when it came to supporting our members, and then we got hit with this. So interestingly, the biggest thing that came through to us in the early days was the challenge of home care or care agency support being withdrawn at really short notice. People were getting extremely upset and concerned, as you can imagine. The big challenge for us was how do we support these people, and we anticipate that this will feed through into the people that we're supporting who are employing their own staff as well. So how do we start bringing these people together? There are people who are furloughed. Again, imagine that PAs might be affected by that. A lot of them could be losing valuable income because they're already on small hours contracts or low wages. So we started an emergency register, very old-fashioned because I can't work technology. We asked people to come and register with us, just set up a spreadsheet, basically, working in partnership with PA Network Scotland. And a lovely gentleman called Neil, who I believe is also on the call, got in touch with us through Twitter. He made us aware of a platform that he was using for a more kind of business district type thing, and offered to donate the platform to enable us to start collecting people, matching people based on their locality, their availability, etc. So that's been phenomenal. It's kind of spiraled from there to, we're now using it as a hub, so that people that are using social care can go in there, they can find information about national organisations and the supports and services they provide, local organisations, and the same again, what supports and services they provide. We are currently chasing all the health and social care partnerships to find out about accessing PPE. Seems to be a very hot topic. And again, just encouraging them, if there are local innovations or ideas or small groups that are setting up, share it on the hub so people can come, they can look at their own area, be that Glasgow, North Lanarkshire, whatever, and see what's going on there. Start to engage with that if they're looking for people that to come and support them in emergency circumstances. They can see who is available in their area. And I've seen Neil today put something on about enabling people to put up shopping lists. So again, one of the things that we had a big problem with was carers getting in touch, and someone was looking for specific food that they couldn't get from supermarkets for their autistic child. And because obviously he's autism, he's very specific about the things that he'll eat. So that was a real concern for that particular carer. So again, we've been using things like Twitter and Facebook to try and promote this and see if we can get folk to engage and help. But Neil's solution today is going to improve that, so that if people are shielding, if they're self-isolating, or if they just can't get access to certain foods and substances, they could put it onto the hub and somebody else in that area could pick it up and offer them support. So yeah, it's been a venture into something that I'm not particularly au fait with, as you can tell, but it's been absolutely phenomenal. It's been really, really well received. And as I say, we're hugely grateful to Neil in particular for donating the platform. The National Lottery Committee has also got in the back of it. So they've gave us a small amount of money to help staff that. So, but yeah, I mean, in terms of the people that are using it and getting in touch with us, they're coming back saying it's a lifeline now. They felt that there was no support for them, or the support was generally about NHS, and then it was going into care homes or care at home workers and things. The platform is communityhubscotland.com, and it's on the Apple Store and Google Store as well. So you can download it for free. It's free for everybody to use as well. Right. Similarly, if people want to put their organisation on it and details of what they can offer in terms of local support or national support, it's free to register. I even managed to register on it, so it can't be that hard. But yeah, it's been absolutely phenomenal. As I say, folk have went from feeling abandoned to, yeah, we're actually part of a community now. So that's been absolutely phenomenal.
Amazing, great. Just to say as well, Colin, Jen's put a link to Community Hub Scotland in the chat, so if anyone wants to go and have a look at that. And when you get in that landing page, you can also download the iPhone and Android version of the app as well, if that's something that'd be useful. That's brilliant. Thanks for that, Colin.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Great. Okay, so next person we've got up is Paul Mckee from Dunfermline Advocacy. Paul, do you want to unmute and jump on, and we can hear what you guys have been doing?
Yeah. Hello. Hi everyone. I want to apologise first of all by saying that I was supposed to take part in this meeting, and that went from speaking for a couple of minutes to speaking for 5 minutes, so bear with me. Not accustomed to public speaking and all that. But my name is Paul Mckee, as you can see, and I am a development worker with Dunfermline Advocacy, which, as the name suggests, provides advocacy in the Dunfermline area and across West Fife. And we're also part of a forum called the Fife Advocacy Forum, which actually has several organisations attached to it. And I just wanted to speak briefly about some of the changes that we've made recently in light of various developments. So we provide citizen advocacy to individuals that are experiencing loneliness or social isolation. No age limits, 16 and up, and obviously no maximum. And this is an endeavour that really requires face-to-face, as lots of our work do. But obviously, with that not being possible, we've needed to move to different options. And certainly, lots of that has involved virtual support and conversations. And from the technologically low challenge that suits me of telephone and texting to things like FaceTime and video calling, what we've seen in the work that we've done in particularly the last couple of weeks, has been that it's a huge thing to people to even speak to you for 5 minutes. It's such a significant difference in their lives, and they tell us this over and over again. And we've started off by saying to people we'd keep in touch kind of once a week, and that has naturally changed to whatever it's needed to be. There are people that we're in touch with more than once a day, and people that we're in touch with, just once a week. And that is, as you would expect with loneliness and social isolation, something that is an individual experience. And what we've tried to do is respond as individually and as bespokely as possible. But obviously that's within the resources that you have, and we're a very small organisation, but I know everyone's doing what they can, and that's what you need to do. Some of the changes that we've made in terms of keeping up to date with what we're doing is we've started something called an activity log, which within Evaluation Support Scotland they call a change record, but it's just keeping a note as you go along of any of the different things that you're doing in light of COVID-19 and the restrictions that are in place, so that when reporting back to funders, local authorities, etc. later on, rather than having to start and gather all your thoughts and get together and kind of plot a graph as to what's happened over the last couple of months, you have fairly up-to-date information based on lots of things that have happened, and that's been really important to us. And it's about adapted practice, and it's about any of the changes, how successful they've been or indeed not, and obviously funders are always interested in the learning that you have throughout the journey of any project that you work, and that can include things that are negative. I think in addition to changing some of our practice in terms of being in touch with people, what we have also done is diverted. We're an organisation that essentially matches volunteers with people who are experiencing loneliness and social isolation. So what we have done is we've ostensibly passed on the volunteers that we had and have to more local and national organisations. Within Fife, there Fife Voluntary Action Run Helping Hands. There's various mutual aid groups, and Fife Council also have a volunteer option in terms of the kind of wider effort, and we've passed people on to them in the hope that they will eventually come back to us for the work that we initially wanted them to do. But I think that's the kind of thing that is a change that you just have to roll with, and you just have to kind of make the best of what's going on at the time. One of the other things that we've done is we've changed any new volunteers that are looking to learn more about advocacy. We've managed to link them up to online tutorials and some e-learning about advocacy that was produced by Fife Council and Fife Advocacy Forum, and that's been something that people have been sort of diving into, and it seems to be something that's been successful and people have enjoyed doing. So just a variety of smaller, kind of more local things. Obviously we're a very small organisation rather than lots of the national organisations that you guys all support and represent. And I think what we've seen with the people that we work with and the people that need us is that lots of people have needed more contact. They've needed it to be more frequent, and it's become more important to them. It was already important, and this has just kind of focused everyone in terms of human contact is the most important thing, and it's the thing that lots of people that we are in touch with have very little or none of on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah.
That's it, really.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for sharing that. I thought really good points, actually. I mean, almost as an aside to the work that you're doing around isolation and loneliness, but just that notion of keeping a record of some of the changes that you've made and communicating that stuff, because actually you know, when I think about what were we doing a week ago feels like a month ago during this period. And actually you're making a lot of changes all the time. Trying to think about those in 3 months' time as to what you did is going to become impossible. So I think that's a really, really good piece of advice. And particularly given that, you know, most funders in Scotland are being really flexible over this period, but you're still going to need to be able to communicate to them exactly what you did and how you did it differently. So I think that's really good advice for everyone that's on this call. Okay, so the final speaker we've got, and then we will have a chance for Q&A, is Kerry Cleland from StarCatchers UK. Kerry, do you want to come in? I did see you, Kerry. You were in the call earlier. There we go. Hello, hi, Kerry.
Hello, I am Kerry and I work for StarCatchers, Scotland's National Arts and Early Years organisation. I specifically am the project coordinator for one of StarCatchers' community engagement projects called Expecting Something, which is a project where artists lead creative sessions for young parents and their babies aged 0 to 2. So we run all year round in Lochgelly, Fife and Westerhills in Edinburgh with sessions once a week. And the long-term aspect of this project means that as well as helping to improve parent and baby engagement with one another through creative arts, the project also helps to build really strong friendships and build connections with their communities. So we often have parents telling us that expecting some sessions are what they have to look forward to every week, and a large majority of the families we work with, who are mostly mums, are single parents, and some have actually also just given birth in recent weeks. So when everything started to sort of shut down and groups began to be cancelled, it really felt that there was no option for us to put a pause on it. It felt that potentially we could be more important than ever. So we, in the last, what I should say actually is also, we are working with an age group who are very well digitally connected, so we are fortunate in that way. However, we are also quite, on a weekly basis, trying to push against screen time. And so it is slightly jarring for what we do. So for the last few weeks, we've been planning and gradually adjusting to what will be online delivery and what has started already. But we have also had activity packs with arts materials delivered directly to each of our participants that we work with, because there felt like that was a disconnect for us to be showing stuff. And yes, the artists can use stuff around homes and everything like that, but it also felt that we needed to give more. So they've received those materials now, and we are now delivering online sessions using the materials so that we can all join in together. It feels, for us as an organisation, we've discussed that it feels like there's a lot of online activities, things to do with your children, and it's actually been slightly overwhelming on social media of this. So we didn't jump in too quickly with it. We've really talked to our participants about what they felt that they needed, but we've also been really keen to personalise what we are doing for our specific groups in each of the areas. And I think that personalising it and making it quite a closed thing with our groups at the moment is what keeps the connection genuine and alive. So I feel that this is the key to keeping our group relationship, but also I think this could be an opportunity to help build on it as well. We are still in very early stages of finding out the best format for the overall delivery of the project, but we're trialing a mix of ways through pre-recorded videos of activity throughout the week, but we're going live either on Zoom or Facebook Live with all of our participants, but we've chosen to make sure that we do that at the same time as that we run our groups on a weekly basis, so that there's some sort of pre-COVID-19 routine still in there, because we felt that was important to have something in your head that you look forward to that you do at this time every week. So we've not changed any of that, but for me, obviously nothing beats actual face-to-face and human contact, but this morning we had a Zoom room with our Fife group, and it felt in some ways like that we were all in the room together. We played games of finding different colours around your house, bringing it back, making a colour wheel with your baby, and we were all sort of off doing our own thing with our kids, but then coming back together during these activities. And we decorated our windows together, and it did actually feel, I think it was probably the most positive experience I've had with an online thing so far. That it was really good fun, but I think somebody mentioned earlier the distraction was important, and it really felt that that's what we were doing. It felt quite normal, and it felt kind of joyous and distracted everyone away from what's going on. But like Paul, what's happening with us organically is that instead of being in contact once a week, it's with our families, it's almost become a daily thing. They're just really keen to keep connected with us. And so we've now started different chat groups, and we're working out different ways. And our artists have set up, they're, taken away from their personal Facebook groups and set up their own StarCatchers ones, so that we can be just in much more contact with people, because that's what they're telling us that they really want. So our rules have slightly adjusted as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Kerry. That was really useful. Okay, what I'm going to do is we're going to take questions now. So if anyone wants to, we've got some that have come from chat, and Jen's going to kind of pull those out and we'll ask them of speakers. If there's anyone who wants to ask one just now of any of the speakers, can I get you to just stick your finger up and we'll pick someone who can ask a question? Anyone got any questions from any of the speakers that they've heard? I'm scrolling my way through all the various pictures of you all to see if anyone actually has a finger up. They've not. Jen, do you want to come in and see if there's any that have kind of come through the chat as we've been going?
Yep, there was a question for Paul from Millie Wheeler, asking if you've got a template that you can share with the group of your changelog.
Paul, do you have a template?
Yeah, I can do that. And I'll do that, but what I would also say is that if you go onto Evaluation Support Scotland website, they have an option called Evaluating at a Distance, and that has a change record in it that people can download and access and amend it to their own organisations. But I'm happy to share as well. That's not a problem.
Great, that's brilliant, Paul. We can get the one from Evaluation Support Scotland, and we can share that in the resources. Any others, Jen, that have come in?
Yep, Jenny was asking if anyone can point her in the direction of research around the value of video calls in relation to loneliness for different sections of society.
Interesting. Okay. Does anyone know of anything around that specifically?
I'll have a look.
Okay. Anne's going to have a look. Cool. Thanks, Anne. You've become like a researcher. I'm just like, amazing. Cool. Okay. Any others that have come in, Jen? Or any points as well as questions that have come in from people?
A lot of the questions are actually being addressed in the chat as we go.
Cool. Okay. Graham's got his hand up, actually. Graham, do you want to jump in and we'll hear from you? Graham Galloway.
Yeah, it was just a question for Colin. I'm really interested in hearing about the platform that you've set up. I'm just wondering how it works integrating with kind of people that are already doing things already. So I'm based in Angus, and the local TSI here has been doing a great job of coordinating the volunteer efforts. They've been working with the local authority, the Health and Social Care Partnership. I'm a bit concerned if all these kind of duplicate platforms start popping up, trying to do the same thing. So I'm just wondering how does it integrate with people who are already doing stuff on the ground?
Okay, good question.
Yep. Hear me okay? Yeah. Yeah. So I suppose the one thing that our platform is specifically about is finding social care support in your local area, and that's something I know there's been, a lot of activity from people like Volunteer Scotland, Ready Scotland, etc., looking at supporting people to volunteer. and do various bits and pieces, but there's been nothing around the social care support or filling the gap where social care support coming from local authorities, HSCPs, care agencies has fell through. So that was our primary concern. I suppose it's kind of developed from there. And certainly, if there are other platforms, it'd be great for them to even register and link back. And likewise, we could do exactly the same for them. As I say, our primary focus was originally about supporting people using social care and making sure that they had that provision.
Great, thanks, Colin. Yeah, just worth saying as well, the SCVO have, and John will probably talk about this in a wee second actually, have got a resource where you can see some of the things that are going on across communities, and some of that will be digital and some will be very face-to-face. And I think, like, obviously Colin's got a very kind of unique situation that's meeting the need for, but I do take Graham's point that actually what we're seeing is a lot of tech interventions spinning up, often from the tech sector, not from the third sector, with little understanding of how infrastructures work, or actually the fact that this is going on already. I don't know, John, have you got anything to add in terms of that, and also I guess what SCVO is doing in that space?
Yeah, of course. So it's a really valid point, because I think one of the interesting features about the coronavirus crisis is that at the same time that existing charities are facing lots of pressures, new organisations are maybe springing up on a very local level. So there's that balance between how you capture that energy, but how you avoid overlap and doing things the hard way. I've just popped in the chat a link to our coronavirus community assistance directory. So what that is a community open source directory where you can either list a service you're currently providing or willing to provide, or request support. If you're an organisation who needs volunteers or resources, you can put a listing in there and say, here's some help that we need. So we put that together very quickly at the beginning of March to try and meet this need of coordination, recognising that there wasn't the capacity to do it in a very central top-down way, but that the best way is for communities to just be aware of what was going on and share that widely. I think that it may be the case in the coming weeks that there's more structure and organisation going on, but that is a challenge, because you've got this quite strange situation where some quite big sectors of the workforce are on furlough, so they're maybe available with their time in a way that they weren't before. Everybody wants to make some kind of positive difference, but we can't all be medical professionals overnight. So it's finding a way to gather that all together. And I think the best strategy, if I was an existing organisation, would be being really open about what we're doing. And that kind of old practical point where often if you're an established organisation on your contact page, you might be quite low-key about volunteering because you don't want to get hassled by lots of requests that you take a lot of time to deal with. But a really good thing to do would be to just say really clearly how you engage with volunteers or how people in your community could help you, and just keep sharing that on your social media. And I think that would just help make people aware of what's going on and bring people into the activity that you're doing.
Yep, some really, really good points there, John. There's a couple of things. We're going to hear from Nick Balneves next, and I just wanted to pull out the chat very quickly. So Iris, so Louise, you can correct me if I've got the acronym wrong here. Institute for Research into Social Services, that's right, I think. Someone can give me a thumbs up if I've got that right. And they have an offer of being able to offer some research support for social services and social care charities. So if you're interested in that, scroll through the chat and you'll get some details on that. Nick, you were going to come in.
Thank you. Yeah, just unmuting myself. Question for Adam at Age Scotland, if I may. And well done on getting your helpline set up and scaled up in such a short space of time. That is amazing. I was wondering if you've noticed that you're getting maybe more, are you getting more calls about tech from older people at the minute? Are people asking about using tech like video calls? Because at Playlist for Life, we are aware that so many people with dementia and the dementia demographic are completely digitally excluded, completely digitally inconfident. And we've been trying to get people over that hurdle for many, many years. I'm aware that now is probably completely the wrong time for many people to start on a tech journey, but we've been doing kind of some little informal trials and kind of very simple research with some people that we already know. And it seems that for some people, I think this is almost the push that they have needed to get them onto tech, because if we've been doing things like just setting up video calls for people, setting up accounts and getting them onto video calls, and it's quite resource intensive and not probably very scalable for us. But when we've been able to do that, and do that because they're so isolated, they're really looking for something, once they have that ability to see you face to face, it is just so valuable for them. So I'm just wondering if you've noticed anybody asking for how can I use digital, how can I use devices more these days?
Yeah. I'm just aware as well, Adam's got to shoot off at 3 because I think he's got another call. So,
sorry, Adam.
No, if you need to be quick,
no,
Adam,
no one else would have known. That's a really good question. There have been people calling about this. On the balance of things, it's largely been like Christ, access to food, access to medications, access to care. You know, how the heck that actually on the tech one is very interesting, and it showed quite strongly the government's letter. So this is a little bit fiddly, but the government letter from the CMO to people saying text your CIH number to this number. People would call us up because our number was on the letter. If you got colleagues come, they're like, I don't know how to text, right? And even SMS texting, it was incredible. And it took a couple of days then to work out that there were local authority helplines that they could then call and doing the same thing. So on the basis front, it's just even what we probably all take for granted, forget video calls, just sending a text message and knowing what's the number, what do I do? So talking people through, if they had a mobile phone, how to do it. Now, what we do in almost every occasion is signpost and refer people to groups and organisations we're aware of that can help. I'm very sure you're on the list for lots of things that we've kind of come up with. But there are people who are asking, look, I just want to get in touch with family and friends. What do I do? Where do I buy it? And and the challenge is, like, these family members have been posting older family members like an old iPhone, but they don't have a pay-as-you-go SIM card. They don't have they don't have Wi-Fi to begin with, or the internet to begin with, and realising they've got a device which is essentially a brick. So it's not just the device, it's the connection to the outside world. So call us up and saying, right, what's the difference between Wi-Fi and 4G? And how do I get it? How do I have to set up a contract? So some of it is really basic, but that's the hardest part to overcome. So yes, there are things, and there is a willingness. I think your point about, is this the push that people might need to sort of embrace something in the most basic sense? Because some technology is so simple that anyone can kind of use, which is incredible. Let's even think of an iPad. Challenges for some is the cost. 150,000 pensioners in Scotland live in poverty. Those will be the big cross-section of those that aren't online in the first place. But I think that you've hit the nail on the head. There are people calling about it. Where do they go for help? And there are great organisations like CLASP as well, and all the rest of them have been helping folks. We know all about that. But some of it is like, honestly, it's like trying to talk to them through the phone. What model have you got? Right? Where is that button? Where's the, I don't know. And it's using that explainer over a phone of how they navigate is pretty tricky. But let's go back to it. Yeah, they couldn't text, but there was no other option. And the way to find out the phone number for the local authority was to go online to NHS Inform. So it was incredible that there was no other option. I just showed in haste. We can often forget those in most need didn't know where else to turn. So we saw this massive spike in calls saying to us, right, we're calling you, can you register us? What? Yeah, and then you have to respond to that. So there'll be more of this, I think, as we're going on. And I had a really interesting conversation with one of the editors at the Sunday Post about this, saying that there are looking at how family members are posting other people these devices. That's my point, but they can't connect. So for all of us to work out, how do you access the connection to the outside world, even if you've got an all singing, all dancing device? That's, and I think Tesco, who's done it now? There's a mobile phone provider who are, they're doing there's lots of deals, for instance, for people to access different services. It's how they know about them and where to go and get them is really, really important too. And not getting ripped off with having a 40 quid a month contract when you're not going to use anything is really important for folks too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, some really, really good points
Thank
there.
you.
Okay, I've posted a link again to, we mentioned this in the first couple of calls as well, to No One Left Behind, which is the kind of Scottish Government programme. There's a bigger kind of UK-wide piece of work, and this is kind of moving at pace around devices, connectivity, and basic digital skills training. And it's getting those three things right, as Adam's kind of rightly pointed out. You know, we give someone a device, but how do they actually get on the internet? And even if they've got a SIM card that came with it, do they know how to connect to 4G and even insert the SIM card in? You're then into the realms of supporting multiple devices, some of which might be a decade old because someone's through goodwill posted it through the door, and it's just like the layers of complexity that are involved in that. But just in terms of I guess what the Scottish Government's plan to do, and some of the partners like SCVO, and I'm involved in a lot of that work as well, is there is work underway at the moment to try and identify those most at need who don't have a device or connectivity or basic digital skills, and to get them connected, to get them a device, and think about what support those people need. So if you look at that blog post, that'll explain kind of some of the work that's going on in that space. Anyone else want to jump in? We've still got a wee bit more time. And it can either be a question or just maybe something that you're doing in your own organisation, or simply if you want to make a point, and feel free to jump in as well. I might pick on someone. Hasna, we heard from you the last time. Sorry, on you go.
I just have a little observation stroke question. Is I guess one thing we're all aware of is things are moving very quickly. So I wondered if anyone had examples of assumptions they had before about the people using their service that they thought were true, that they've actually found have changed very quickly because people are having to connect in different ways.
Anyone found that at all? It's interesting, I think, as well, Adam's point that some of these things will kind of unravel over time, and we'll start to see this. And I think particularly for people who are hit worst by poverty, so if you're on a pay-as-you-go SIM card and you barely had enough data as it is, and now you're having to do everything online because you can't get out, you can't use a phone to connect to the right organisations that you previously could connect on the phone. And one of the things I'm hearing a lot is people's data plans just being eaten up very, very quickly. And I think that's a big concern, is actually we're at an early stage where beyond this, there'll be a big cohort of people who are connected to the internet and have a device, but actually don't have any data left and don't have the money to purchase that data. And that's a big concern as well. So it's thinking about some charities that I've spoken to are eating into reserves to try and support people they're working with. That may be something you need to go to your board and speak to them about. So, okay. Okay, Hasna, I know you spoke a wee bit on the last call, but I just think given that the theme this week is isolation and loneliness, be good, could you just tell people a wee bit about what you guys have been doing?
Hi there, hi everyone. It's nice to recognise some faces, and it's nice to see so many new people as well. I just wanted to say to Adam and Nick, that totally resonate with your scaling up of all the phone calls, just phenomenal. Thank you to all the staff there at Age Scotland. Yeah, so we run weekday wow factor. So normally we have daytime discos for older adults. Our target group are people at the age of kind of late 60s and early 70s. So yeah, there were a handful of people that I was speaking to who are on WhatsApp, and we already had WhatsApp groups setting up because there's quite a lot of people who don't like using Facebook. So we use the WhatsApp group as a first point to get to the video call, just because the video button is on that. We're used to texting, but there's quite a lot of older people who hadn't used that video button. So that was our starting point. And then the next stage was, because we can only get 4 people on a video call for WhatsApp, whereas for Skype, it's up to about 50 people. So we thought we'd scale up by using that. A lot of older people that we work with have heard of Skype. They haven't heard of Zoom. So there was no point starting and to alienate folk by using Zoom. But Skype's actually worked quite well. And Nick, you were talking about being pushed to use video conferencing. That push was for me too. So I was in alignment with my clients. We were all in the same boat and the same position, and we were all experimenting at the same time. So it was all trial and error. I was just speaking to Siobhan yesterday and Maddie, and I was just saying that sometimes some of these tutorials are really hard to follow, and I work by trial and error. So with older people, we were just doing the trial and error continuously. There were days that we could see them, there were days that we couldn't see them, there were days we could hear them. So yeah, I think that has led to, after coronavirus, we're going to continue using this platform. I can see the potential of people who are housebound or with these extreme weather forecasts and weather conditions we've got as something that we would like to use on a long-term basis. I was just wondering, Adam, is there potential for our organisation to work together to signpost people who might have, I know there's a lot of people excluded digitally, but there might be, there is, because we've got evidence of that, there are some people who are quite digital savvy, or they're actually keen to try it out. There was a guy who came to our disco recently, and he was 96 and he used Twitter much better than I did. So there are some people, and I appreciate that's not a majority of folk, but I was just wondering how we could work together.
I think you've also made a very good point that there's a lot of older people who are incredibly good at using digital solutions. I mean, I'd kind of done the worst, you know, the lowest case in terms of those who are missing out, but there are huge numbers who are doing it and doing it well. And I think for us, you know, that helpline was there for, and is there for, those that couldn't necessarily didn't have any other option. Now, yes, absolutely. I think I'm pretty sure that when people have been calling looking for things to do, we are referring them to you. And I know I've had emails from our helpline advisors and Teams messages saying, can you pass me on the details of Weekday Wow Factor? So we've kind of got on a central database of things. So it does happen. Sometimes the volume of calls that have been coming in, for instance, just been like trying to work out in the advisor's mind, going, right, what are all the things that folks could do? And with a little bit more time, we could probably do a little bit more on our social channels of promoting what you're doing, what everyone's doing. We're just trying to catch up. But I think you make a really good point. For those people who are absolutely switched on with things, what more is out there for them to be connected with others, to be active, to communicate, and to inspire other people actually with what they're doing. I think the stuff that you've been doing is absolutely marvellous, and I really liked watching it on STV News a couple of weeks ago with your what was it, like Friday Rave or something? I can't remember exactly, but it was really good. So more of that I think is necessary, and I think we're just sort of looking at, if we look at horses for courses here, the people that can do something and want to do something, making sure they know what's available and how you scale up, you know, to be able to facilitate that. It's a really good point about, if you know what Skype is, having to explain Zoom is a whole other kettle of fish. So kind of making sure you can adapt to what people know and not to give them another block. What do I download? Where to do this? And I think that's our challenge for all of us, is there's lots of different platforms, but there are people who know what they know, and how do we all adapt to what they know and how they can best interact, as opposed to what our personal preferences are. But I know you're doing brilliant stuff. It's incredible. And we're sort of partly looking at some of the services we have on what if you can't do these things, what if you're less active when you're sitting down. So there's a whole range of people, not being older people in a homogenous group, but yeah, we'll do more in promoting what you're doing, and we're trying our best to promote everything that everyone's doing, but we don't necessarily have the biggest audience in the world all the time, so there are other people better at doing that. But if we haven't done it yet, apologies, we'll get to it.
At all.
Well, thank you.
Very important things that you're doing very well at. Thank you. I just want to say, Nick, if it's possible at all to exchange details, just if you don't mind listing your email address, that'd be really good. You can get in touch so that we can work together. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I put it in the Google Doc, so it's there if anybody wants to get in touch. And we're ramping up. We're starting to make lots of activities that we can share with people. So we'd welcome anybody who wants to come and take them away and make use of them in whatever way you can.
Brilliant. Finally, I just wanted to put a word into Anne. Thank you very much for all your brilliant ideas. Been integrating them within our disco. So thank you for those. That's me. Thank
Amazing.
you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Pasna. Siobhan from SCVO, I'm going to wrap up in a wee second because I'm conscious of time, but just I guess a question, but also a kind of a point as well, which I think everyone should really be thinking about is, so how do we get tech savvy older people connected with older people who need digital assistance? And I think just applying that logic, whether you work with older people or whether it's, we heard from young parents earlier on, whatever your cohort of beneficiaries is how do you match up people who know about technology, and it could be at fairly basic level for people who this is very, very new to them, and actually taking that kind of digital champions model. So we can maybe put the link in, or we can put it in the resources, but some of the really good digital participation resources that are on the SCVO site, but really thinking about how can you do that joining up, and how can you get trusted people in their network to speak to each other, rather than it being referred on to a third-party organisation and then maybe when they speak to someone who they've never met before. And for a lot of people, and particularly older people, and if you've never used the internet for the first time, speaking to a stranger from an organisation you don't know is far less likely to happen than speaking to someone that you know within that existing network. So use those existing networks that you've got. Okay, John, I don't know if you've got anything you want to say in terms of kind of wrapping up and talking about kind of next steps in our call that we've got next week.
Not a great deal. I think I said a lot at the top of the call, but it's really good you've all been here, and we're really encouraged by the experiences that charities are having and all that you're learning along the way. So don't be shy about using that Google Doc to put in more links and resources that you find. As I say, we'll have a case study of Pasna's work coming out very shortly, and also already on our site we have a blog touching on some of the issues we talked about today, giving a kind of overview. So feel free to share those resources with other people in your organisation, and we'll hopefully have our brief podcast available either at the very end of this week or early next week. And the topic we're going to be looking at next week on the 15th of April will be accessibility and inclusion. So obviously there's quite a few big strands to that subject, but we're looking at these issues around if we're suddenly making a switch to digital channels, how do we make sure that those don't exclude people who we've been in contact with on face-to-face channels in the past. So just keep an eye on our social media for the latest updates, and do keep contributing to the conversations because it's very helpful.
Brilliant, thank you, John. Yeah, so I've just put a link in the chat so you can sign up for the next one, which is on the 15th of April. Just say as well, we've got the first confirmed speaker for that. So we're going to have someone from Bernardo's talking about the shift that they've made to using WhatsApp as a tool to communicate with beneficiaries. So they've done some really interesting stuff in that space. What's also quite useful is they've written up a lot of the processes and the kind of safeguarding stuff around that. So if WhatsApp is something that you're using at the moment and you just kind of moved it quite quickly, or if it's something you're thinking about using but don't know where to begin, that's quite a useful one. And we're also going to try and, as John said, bring in some accessibility experts as well to talk about some of those areas that you need to be thinking about. For some of you, I'm conscious where you're delivering digital services the first time, you've probably thought about accessibility in that kind of face-to-face space, but actually moving that into online is a kind of different kettle of fish for a lot of you. So we can kind of explore some of those areas. Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much for joining the call. That's us for this week. We'll back next week. And also just say as well, if you work in the violence against women and girls field, we've got the specific call next Friday for that one as well that you can sign up for. Brilliant. Thank you very much for coming along, everyone. Thank you. Have to do the obligatory wave to everyone. There we go.
Not as many people have walked away from their desk today.
Might have to do a bit of encouraging, Ross.
You should maybe take yourself off mute, Ross.
That always helps. They'll become. Do you know what I should actually do, right? And it doesn't work as a shortcut in here because I think the spacebar works as a shortcut for mute on Windows, doesn't it? Doesn't it work in Chromebook? Annoying. Right. Ian, Sitar, and Robin, are you able to exit the meeting? I don't want to kick you out. That feels very rude.
Sorry, guys, I'll disappear now. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Robin. Ian, are you still on? Have you left this on? I don't actually know if I can kick anyone out. This is the joys of Chromebooks. Have anyone else got controls for managing participants? Not at all. That's really annoying. Give me a second. I'll boot from my phone. How do y'all feel that went? Good.
Okay. Have we got Ian as well? Does he need to?
Yeah, I know. I can't boot him out. That's the problem. Come on, Ian. What I'll do is I'll jump in the call. There's second names.
What happens when you click raise hand? I'm going to click it. Did anything happen?
Don't know. Should we just start another call, Ross?
Sorry about that. Throw my phone away.
I'll just go and I'll Slack you another call.
Yeah. Let's
right.
Do that.
Just check your email for a link.
To you.
I'll do it in an email.
Cool. Perfect. Nice one.